Essentially what a thread lift is where they literally take a thread, also known as a suture, that is barbed one way. Thread that suture through in the smooth fashion, then you pull back that suture and those barbs engage, and theoretically what they're supposed to do is essentially hook onto the tissues and literally pull them back. Yeah, obviously once you pull it back and everything looks nice and tight right then and there, you're like, wow, my face looks lifted, fantastic. And then you get scar tissue that gets put into there and establishes a new thread on its own that will keep your face in that lifted position. That's bullshit, because that's not how it works. When that suture does inevitably dissolve, sure, you might have scar tissue, but it's not a perfect scar tissue string that's going to keep your face nice and lifted. All right, welcome back everybody. My name is Dr. Saadat, and I'm a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. And for today's topic, I want to talk to you about a very popular trend, which I hate, known as thread lifts. So what is a thread lift? So you've probably seen this on Instagram and in different med spas, but essentially what a thread lift is where they literally take a thread, also known as a suture, that is barbed one way. So if you run your fingers along it this way, it's totally smooth. If you do it the other direction, it has barbed hooks in it, and I'll tell you why that is. So what we do, or not what we do, but what they do with the thread lifts is they actually will make a hole, usually somewhere like, let's say if you want to lift the cheek, they'll do it up here. If you want to lift the neck, they'll make like a small poke hole right here. Then what you do is you thread that suture through in the smooth fashion, take it underneath the skin, and then once you've gone through all the way, then you pull back that suture and those barbs engage, and theoretically what they're supposed to do is essentially hook onto the tissues and literally pull them back. So think it's like face taping, but you're basically doing it underneath the skin. Now you may think that this is a nice non-invasive way of doing a facelift or a brow lift of some kind, and that way then you don't have to undergo the knife and the recovery process of surgery. But let me tell you why I hate these and why I refuse to do them in my practice. So the problem with it is, at the end of the day, you're putting a suture there. And when a suture goes that superficial to the skin, there are going to be risks that automatically come with it. And one of those big risks is that the suture could get infected, or it could even sometimes end up eroding through the skin, causing scarring, pain, discomfort, and complete distortion of the tissue, which is probably not why you went to go get the thing in the first place, because you wanted to look better, not disfigured. Now the other problem with it is that these thread lifts promise the result of the facelift, because yeah, obviously once you pull it back and everything looks nice and tight right then and there, you're like, wow, my face looks lifted, fantastic. There is this thing where people say like, oh, well what happens is it's a dissolvable suture, so it dissolves over time, and then you get scar tissue that gets put into there and basically establishes a new thread on its own that will keep your face in that lifted position. Let me tell you, that's bullshit, because that's not how it works. When that suture does inevitably dissolve, sure, you might have scar tissue, but it's not a perfect scar tissue string that's going to keep your face nice and lifted. What's going to happen is after a month or two, that suture is going to dissolve. You're just going to have a little extra scar tissue. The area may be a little bit firmer to touch, but whatever lift you had is going to drop right back to where it was before. So now you're just going to have more scar tissue in your face when you look exactly the same. And that's if you didn't have a complication that ends up making you look worse. And the other thing is, I've done plenty of facelifts, and I have done them on people who have had thread lifts in the past. And I have seen people who had thread lifts 10 years ago. And when I open up their face, I still find remnants of that thread suture that was put into their face in their deeper tissues, meaning that when they say that it 100% dissolves, just like filler, that's a lie. It does not 100% dissolve. The other thing that's important to understand about the dissolving process, even if it does completely dissolve, how these sutures dissolve is that over time, they begin to draw water into them, they start to swell, and then that leads the body to start to break it down and theoretically absorb the materials as they're broken down. But if that thread is placed too close to the skin, which in a lot of patients who have thinner skin that need that facelift, that need that rejuvenation, what can happen is as that thread starts to swell in the breakdown process, you may notice that there's literally a swollen, lumpy line where that thread is, and that can last for several months before it completely goes away. So that is why I do not recommend people getting thread lifts. They are expensive, they are not worth your money, and ultimately you're way better off saving up your money to get a facelift or not having anything done at all, because these thread lifts are just going to take your money and potentially have catastrophic outcomes for you. So that's my humble opinion on thread lifts. I hope you learned something today. Go ahead and make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any thoughts or questions, comment them below. And I will see you next time for our next beauty topic. See you later.